Coming to you live from a cabin deep in the heart of the Canadian wilderness. Turn down the lights, get yourself a drink, and let's settle in for tonight's broadcast. Good evening, and welcome to Midnight Mysteries. Here are your hosts.
Welcome back to Midnight Mysteries, the heart of Canadian Paranormal Radio. My name is Nathan.
And my name is Mike. And tonight we have a special guest. As always, if you want to learn more about these topics that we discuss, like cryptozoology, the paranormal, UFOs, you name it, subscribe, follow us on Facebook, reach out to us, or
Instagram,
just tune in live.
Spotify, all those fun places. So it is warming up. The snow is melting. Animals and other creatures are emerging from their lairs, and people are heading back into the wild. This includes Mike and myself and our families. We've been getting out to the cabin more frequently to broadcast episodes and go live on the air. Getting into the wilderness reminds us of one of the first topics to get us into the paranormal conversation. No, it's not giants, although that is another one of the first topics that got us into paranormal, which we've covered in previous episodes, but it's Sasquatch. And a little while ago, I'm camping in Nordegg and stopped by the Beehive Artisan Market. Shout out to you guys. I'll make sure to tag you in this episode. And there at the till is this random guy's business card that says Cameron Young, Sasquatch researcher.
Attention grabbing.
So I reached out to him, and then we didn't talk for 2 years. But now we have him on the show tonight for all of you.
Hey, Cameron, and welcome to the show.
In your bio, you mentioned that at 7 years old, your dad introduced you to the mystery surrounding Sasquatch. What did that look like?
We were having dinner, and I don't know exactly how we even got into that, but
That's usually how these conversations start.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
It was basically we were having dinner, and I think my dad was telling me about his time living in BC, because he lived in BC for a short period of time, and then he said, "Oh, it was so and so. Yeah, that's where the Sasquatch lives." And I was like, "What's Sasquatch? What's Bigfoot?" And he told me, "Oh, it's this huge, hairy, man-like creature wandering around British Columbia."
Yeah.
And then I kept asking him questions, and then finally he just got sick of me asking questions. He said, "Tomorrow's library day at the school, isn't it?" I said, "Yeah." "Why don't you ask the librarian and see if they got any books and start reading on it?" And from then on, I just grabbed every book I could, and it just hooked me, and I haven't put it down really since.
That's awesome. Do other family members of yours have an interest in Sasquatch? Or
No.
have they had
No.
No, not at all.
You were the chosen one?
Yeah, no. I don't, to be honest, I don't really talk to my family about that much. I just kind of keep it my thing.
Yeah.
My one uncle, he knows I kind of do podcasts here and there, and he kind of says, "Well, you never know what's out in the world,
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I don't talk to family about it.
Oh, fair enough.
Have you had any experiences? Or you still on the hunt? I mean, what does this look like for you on a regular basis?
Well, the tough part is there is this thing called real life, and I do have to work.
Yeah.
A real job. As much as I'd love to do Sasquatch work for a living, it unfortunately doesn't pay the bills.
Yeah.
No.
So the winter time is tough. Obviously, we don't know where they go. We don't know what they do. There's not a lot of reports coming out of the winter, obviously, especially in Alberta.
Yeah.
So mostly I'm out there when I can to my areas, basically from May to late October.
Yeah.
And, it's just basically going out to these areas, hiking around, scouting, driving down the logging road, scouting, that kind of thing. That's basically about it. Most of the times you don't get lucky, but sometimes you get a little lucky and you find something that, and you go, "Oh, interesting." That's pretty much about it.
So what are, without getting too specific, what kind of are your general areas that you kind of focus on, or without giving anything away.
Well, I
you know.
don't really have a special, fishing spot, but
Yeah.
the Nordig area,
Mm-hmm.
Jasper area, Banff, basically the Alberta Rockies.
Yeah.
You know,
Anywhere. Yeah.
yeah, like anywhere remote.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not going to go and find these things walking around the river valley in Edmonton.
No.
So
You might find some other scary things, but
yeah. So just it's mostly I find the Nordig area the best area because it's more quiet. It's not as touristy, obviously, like Banff and Jasper.
yeah.
Although the Jasper, Hinton areas and south, like into Robb, I've heard is a pretty good area. But yeah, that's about it. That's about the place I go.
So you were saying that in the winter you don't really know kind of what goes on, and I get that. I mean, not many people are going
No.
deep into the mountains in
No.
minus 30 or 40, right?
Right.
But I guess it just brings up kind of one of the baseline questions I have for people that are into, looking for Sasquatch. Is what do you think they are, in the sense that, I mean, I guess starting more simple is there's kind of like a few different schools of thought. There's the completely natural school of thought that they're an animal of some sort or a lost ancestor of humans or something like that. And then you have kind of the hybrid. They're natural, but they have supernatural aspects. And then you have more on the other end of the spectrum, the supernatural beliefs. So kind of where do you fit on that spectrum?
I think has nothing to do with UFOs or aliens. I think it is just a unknown, undiscovered primate of some kind.
Okay.
And that's the thing that really gets me going, are these people that compare it with UFOs and aliens and flying saucers, and it just doesn't
people
have
like us.
it just does not have anything to do with it. To me, I tried, as the late great Rene DeHinden always used to say, I'm into Sasquatch in the bush on the ground. That's that's what I'm into.
Yeah.
I just think, and you know what? I could be wrong. One day when these things come to discovery, I could be made a fool and be like, oh, so it was alien. All right.
UFO
Yeah.
Sasquatch walks out of a UFO. And
Oh, so it was Chewbacca
hey,
all along.
Cameron, you still doubt?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
No, I think it is just personally to me, an unknown, undiscovered primate of some kind.
Okay.
I
mean, there's obviously no right or wrong
No.
answer at this point. So it's just
No.
kind of getting an idea of where,
Yeah.
where you're coming from with that. Okay.
And something we've said over and over again on the show is, we don't even know what we don't know, right? Which kind of leads us into our next question. But in terms of research, have you ever come across any really interesting facts or reoccurring themes about Sasquatch? Things like, the Sasquatch suddenly appearing or disappearing, the same unusual smells, etc.?
Personally, the stuff that's been given to me is just been more general animal behavior.
Yeah.
Nothing of appearing and disappearing. Some tell me they've heard screams. Some have had rocks or something thrown at them. Some were just, hey, I saw this.
Yeah.
And what that is mostly is pretty just generic, basic animal-like behavior.
Yeah.
Nothing that I would say is... I haven't gotten a story where, a person came up to me and said, hey, I was walking on the trail and all of a sudden Sasquatch came across the trail and walked into a portal.
Right.
And then if I did get that, that's when I would walk away.
Well,
Were you smoking anything?
Yeah.
at the
Yeah,
time?
exactly.
It kind of fits with what you were saying about, even winter, like maybe they hibernate, right? Like maybe that's why there's not much. I don't know. Right?
So I was told one thing by a gentleman, and basically what he told me was there's this area where they all gather before the winter, and they check to see, or no, it's a spring. They all come down from this area in the spring, and they check to see who survived the winter.
Oh, okay.
And then once they know who survived and didn't survive, then they disperse,
Okay.
and then they meet again in the fall.
Interesting.
See who,
Like I'm assuming that would be like kind of a a local of them, because I mean
Yeah.
they've been reported all over the world.
That's
right.
right.
So yeah, so like kind of like a community almost.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I was told that, and I kind of see I could see that.
Yeah.
Because if they were, I think they're very smart creatures, whatever they are. They would have to be I think they have very high survival skills. They would have to be for not being discovered this long.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't have those skills.
No.
There's very good people that could survive in the woods, like there's Survivor Man, obviously, and
Right,
Les
right.
Stroud, but I think they're
Right.
way ahead of them. They're
kind
way
of, kind of at the top of the pyramid.
Yeah.
Are they territorial or do they migrate, in your opinion? What does that look like?
I think, well, we don't know. Personally, I think they do some migration, which would explain the lack of reports in the winter.
Right.
But then again, as humans, we're not out much in the winter. Who is? Skiers, maybe?
Yeah.
Snowboard, but they're not going to be around those areas because
Yeah.
there's too many humans.
The only ones I can think of is skidoors, but they're so loud
Yeah,
you could hear
no.
them from
Yeah.
friggin' 30 minutes before they get there, right?
Because you look at even bear attacks. Most bear attacks happen to hunters because hunters are creeping around.
Right.
They surprise the bear, and it reminds me of the Missing 411 documentaries, where they have these cases of these hunters go missing, like under really bizarre circumstances. Would you say that's kind of accurate in what you found and what you've come across?
Yes and no. I know exactly who you're talking about, David Pilates. I tried to reach out to him a couple times, and when he did get back to me, he just really does not think it has anything to do with Sasquatch.
Okay.
I kind of disagree a little bit.
Yeah.
I was told by a gentleman one time, Sasquatch are a lot like people. You have good people, you have bad people. You have nice Sasquatches like Harry and the Hendersons, and you got Blair Witch Project Sasquatches. You have murderous you just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You could come across one on a bad day. Who knows?
Yeah.
I'm just speculating. We don't know, right? We don't know
course,
where these
yeah.
411 cases are all about. But hey, who's to say a small, tiny percentage of them is because of Sasquatch?
Right.
We don't know.
Yeah.
But I think maybe a small percent of it would, like if you come across one that's not having a good day,
Don't mess around.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've seen the beef jerky commercials,
Yeah.
So
In creating some of the in the reel for this episode, actually, I was looking for GIFs or GIFs, however you pronounce it, and that beef jerky one kept coming up over and over
Yeah.
again, and the Sasquatch booting the guy across the field.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, even from a non-human perspective, same thing with animals, right?
Yeah.
You have bears that go on and start killing people because for whatever reason, whether it's, taste or sickness or whatever.
Right.
You have wolves, that, just a couple of years ago or whatever it was, that guy, some American was visiting Banff and a lone wolf attacked him in his tent,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? Like, you just don't know, right?
Mountain
Well, I
lions.
was
Mountain
talking
lions
to
and-
talking to Thomas Steenberg just a little while ago about this bear. They used to have an open dump viewing area in Banff for bears, and they had this. I think it was a grizzly bear that they had to put down because it started killing people.
Yeah.
Well, once they get a taste for human flesh.
Yeah,
that's when they're-
and
same with
it's.
dogs,
I
right?
think it's literally hanging on the wall in the Banff Museum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I took a picture of it and sent it to him. He's like, "Yeah, that's it."
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, interesting. Have you ever dove into some of the research surrounding First Nations
oh
beliefs
yeah,
in Sasquatch?
oh yeah, I hold that in very high regard. Because they're the ones that kind of told us about them, right?
Right.
We learned from them.
Yeah.
I've talked to some First Nations people out in Nordig. Once you kind of tell them, hey, I'm not here to kill them, they open up to you.
Right.
But they're very good at judging people, obviously. And by what I mean by that is if you're dressed in camo and have guns to the nines. Of course, they're not going to tell you,
Right.
oh yeah, there's one right down there, you know,
Yeah.
because that's their spiritual. I hope I'm pronouncing this right. The Chehalis First Nations Reserve outside of Harrison Hot Springs, BC, their official band logo is a Sasquatch, and that's where the name Sasquatch came from.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It came from that. That's
It was a man. So there was a man by the name of J.W. Burns, and he was working on the First Nation Reserve, I believe, as a teacher. Don't quote me on that. Thomas Steenberg can tell this story a lot better than me. And he started hearing these stories. And when the original Maclean's magazine, I got it here actually, the original article came out. It actually came out on April Fool's Day, believe it or not. And so, but the term Sasquatch, or the name Sasquatch, was actually mispronounced. I believe it was actually supposed to be called Saskets,
Okay.
or something like that. Thomas Steenberg, again, can do this much better than I can. But the way they published it, it turned out to be Sasquatch, and the
Okay.
name stuck.
Yeah.
So that's where that name Sasquatch came out of, was the Chehalis First Nations Reserve outside of Harrison Hot Springs, British Columbia.
Right. And that's kind of central south BC, right?
Yeah, it's
Right,
not
kinda.
far from. It's not far from Vancouver.
Oh, yeah, and Hope, I think it's
Yeah,
close to
it's near Hope.
and-
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we've talked a bit about you researching, you interviewing some of these people, but when you're interviewing people who have witnessed them themselves, not just people groups, what kind of encounter stories do you usually hear about? Are people, this plays into what we were talking about earlier, are they usually stumbling across them while hiking or camping, or are most sightings by people out and about looking for them, like Sasquatch hunters?
Oh no, it's mostly people just stumbling across it.
Yeah.
I mostly get emails. I haven't gotten actual many calls. Most of the personal reports that I've gotten in my files were from emails.
Okay.
Lately I kind of backed off putting my number, and I haven't gotten many prank calls, which is a good thing. So I will applaud people for that. Mostly it's just people just out doing whatever they're doing out there. It's not other Sasquatch researchers. It's just general public people.
Yeah.
One of the first ones I got was a husband and wife emailed me. I think they saw my card or ad in a newspaper. And they're like, oh yeah, we just heard, we were out at Crescent Falls and I've been there. And all of a sudden we heard screams and we were getting rocks thrown at us.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically it. I mean, most people don't believe in Sasquatch anyways.
Yeah.
Right.
So when something happens to them, they're like, well, what the heck was that?
No kidding. Yeah.
What's the scariest story you've ever heard?
I haven't really gotten any scary ones, to be honest. I mean, I hope I do one day. I think I do have one. I should have brought my computer out, but I think a guy was in his camper, then comes up to the camper and starts shaking the camper.
Yeah.
And I think he put trail cams out, and he actually did get something odd. I
Yeah.
do have pictures of it.
I'd be peeing my pants.
Oh, yeah, me too.
Is that a bear? Oh, what? What is that?
I mean, when you think about it, like a rabbit jumping around at night in the forest is enough to scare somebody because you don't know what it is. But then with something with that kind of strength and
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't gotten many many scary things.
Yeah.
It's mostly just been, hey, this happened, and part of the problem is too, and I think a lot of the bigger researchers can attest to this. We get the stories that happened 20 years ago.
Right.
It's not something that happened just recently because
Fresh,
people are
right.
so worried to say things, and I understand.
Yeah.
stigma.
So it's like, oh yeah, back in 30 years ago, blah, 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 blah. Not, oh, well, that would have been like so 2 weeks ago where I work, I had these older people come in and they were traveling back. This friend was driving his friend back home to a place outside of Kamloops, which I've been to.
Mm-hmm.
Oh dear, what is the name? I lost it now, but they were, and she said over 30 years ago, before her husband died, they had Sasquatch coming around their cabin,
Yeah.
and it came right up to the door, and it would harass their cat, their dog, the neighbor's dog. Sun Peaks, just outside of Kamloops.
Okay.
And these people, I did end up giving them my email, but I've never heard anything back. So maybe it was one of those haha got you moments. But I couldn't tell this elderly lady that, oh, you liar. You know,
Of course, yeah.
You know,
Why not?
because I respect my elders sometimes. But that, you know, and that's where I work. I work where there's guns and ammo to be bought.
Yeah.
And if a certain type of customer comes up, I kind of get a feel for them. And if I think if I can ask them a question, I'll do it. I'll be like, so, and this is how I ask these people. I said, so have you guys seen anything interesting out in the woods or stuff you can't? That's how I kind of word it. I don't go, oh, have you seen Sasquatch?
Of course, yeah.
I kind of tiptoe around it.
Yeah.
And then if they bite on that, then I ask them.
Yeah.
And that's what happened here. So I believe the lady's name was Janet or Janice or something like that. And this was like over they called them, she saw it twice. The other times was around her property. And then again, she saw one crossing the road outside of Mount Robson National Park.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, and I've been right near there. I've driven right through there.
Yeah.
So that's the most recent thing I got. But again, that happened. She said this happened, you know, years ago before her husband died.
What's the weirdest story you've ever heard? I mean, you know, did someone see a Sasquatch driving a car, wearing a dress, or something else that's really out there?
Nothing like that.
No, okay.
If I ever got a report like that, I'd probably recommend them to Igor Burtsov, you know, the guy who thinks that he talks to Sasquatch on the phone, you know.
Oh.
I think that's who I'd recommend them,
Yeah.
refer them to. Like, I try to be, you know, I'd like to think I could figure out what's
What
legit.
does Sasquatch say on the phone? Like, what are you wearing?
Well, there's actually, what is it? I think it's Ontario Sasquatch. It's a channel on YouTube.
Yeah, I've heard of him, yeah.
And yeah, like he claims to record them like making these conversational sounding noises. It's actually quite fascinating. I have no idea to the legitimacy of them. I have no idea, but I always found that one interesting because you're like, no way, this is dumb. But then you're like, listen, and you're like, I mean, what the heck would make that noise though?
Well, it's similar to dolphins, right? Like after years of studying dolphins, they've determined through linguistic analysis that dolphins tease each other. There's like sarcasm, there's laughter, there's bullying, there's all sorts of stuff. So
Right.
I mean, with Sasquatch, if they're intelligent animals or intelligent creatures, whatever they are, and they are in groups or communal groups, then there has to be some sort of, you know, communication method among them. And if for instance they aren't something supernatural per se, then they're not communicating telepathically. They have to communicate through some sort of, you know, repetitive patterns. So that does make sense.
Now I gotta ask. Oh, go ahead if you're gonna say.
No. Well, we'll get to that in a bit. And you go ahead.
No, I was just I have to ask, and I'm mind blanking on the name. I was gonna search it up here, but you probably know. Like, infamous, famous, controversial Alberta Sasquatch figure.
Yeah.
Do you,
I know exactly who you're talking about.
okay, what's say the name? It's fine.
Todd Standing.
Yes. Okay. Because
Todd the fraud.
Yeah, I've heard so many things, and I've seen the videos.
Is this a guy who goes around faking
Yes.
these encounters?
Yes.
Well, he would get these super high quality face
Suits?
shots, but it was
Winky
like
and Blinky, we call them.
stationary. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, Winky and
Yeah.
Blinky, we call them.
Okay, well, I think you answered my question with your.
Oh, it's such.
Like,
it's
oh yeah, that guy.
yeah. I can hear my teammate Josh's blood just boiling right now. So. Now, I will admit, when that first came out, me being younger,
Yeah.
of course you get suckered into it.
Right.
But as you get older and you start talking to the bigger, more researchers, and they go, come on, you know, like,
Gotcha.
you know, but no, I mean, and you know, it's kind of funny. So I think originally he's from Edmonton. but I do know I think he lives in Calgary or.
Yeah, I
sorry.
believe he's done most of his stuff kind of in southern Alberta.
Well, he did do some stuff, I believe, in the Nordig area.
Most, yeah.
And that's why I'm a little reluctant to say where I'm from, because I don't want people to think, oh, you're from where Todd Standing's from. You're in cahoots with him or something. No, I've never met the guy. I've never talked. But it's pretty easy to tell it's fake.
Well, and it kind of brings it back to what you were saying earlier. You're talking about the different generations of researchers and how, like, this most recent generation, you kind of roll your eyes a bit, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? That's honestly, that's across
everything,
any field, because of the internet. Everyone's an expert, right? And you know, you just have so many people trying to capitalize on the hype and making money.
I think it's more so in the United States, like finding Bigfoot when that took off in the States. And I mean, I've interviewed Cliff Brackman, and I've tried to interview Matt Moneymaker, but I can't afford him. And nice guy, but I just can't, Canada wise, I don't think it's like that. Yeah.
If you think about it, the States is 10 times the population size of Canada.
Right.
And if it happens here to a small extent, like how much more so is it happening in these large countries?
Right.
And I think the scary thing is with the predominance and exponential growth of AI, we're seeing a lot more of this evidence.
And that's what I was going to get into. And there's some stuff they can do now. And it's like, oh no, this is bad. This is not a good sign.
Yeah.
Because what's going to happen if we get a real trail cam photo, or what happens if we get another Patterson Lake film?
Yeah.
Then what are we going to think? Oh, it's all fake. It's all That's the problem, because we won't know the difference between real and fake.
It's getting harder to tell. It used to be fairly easy, and now it's getting harder.
Like Standing.
Right.
So, question for you: Do you believe that there's any overarching attempt to suppress the existence of Sasquatch, or do you think it's as simple as an undiscovered species?
At one time I did, but after talking with other researchers like Thomas Steenberg, no. I think the government has other things to worry about. I don't think they're.
You would hope so.
I don't think they really care.
Yeah.
Now I will say, and I will pose you guys this question: what is the top? Like, let's say tomorrow we wake up, or overnight, some trucker, some hunter finally shoots one, or one gets hit by a semi-truck.
Yeah.
What is the number one industry that is going to be affected by the existence of Sasquatch if proven to be true? What do you think that would be? I know the answer, but what
forestry?
Bingo, right there.
Yeah.
That.
Because everybody's going to head into the wilderness to...
No. It's because you're going to have all these groups and all these things try to protect the forest now.
Right.
Oh, right.
You're going to have... Like, that's the thing. We don't... Like, one time Renee DeHinden asked John Napier, what's it going to be like if we actually prove the Sasquatch is real? And Napier said, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
Because it's going to affect, it's going to affect some religion.
Yeah.
It's going to affect forestry. It's going to affect tourism in a way that for young, I believe you guys have young children, right? Mm-hmm. Would you guys want to bring your young kids into the woods if you knew a 7 to 8 foot tall man-like creature was running around?
You'd be a lot more hesitant. we would go, but...
Yeah, you guys would, yeah.
It would bring people, and it would scare some people away.
If we saw one, we'd be like, hey, you want to sit down for a Midnight Mysteries episode? Tears our head off.
Yeah, but that forestry, it would be, and I've heard some stories that whether they're real or not, I don't know. They're very down the tunnel stories.
Okay.
I'm not going to say here. But it makes you go, I wonder if that's actually happening.
Right.
But as far as government goes, I don't really think they care.
Yeah.
I think they would have dealt with it a long time ago.
Right.
And you have to remember, I believe.
Well, why would they care, though, honestly?
And I think there's a spot in the States, Skamania County, Washington. They actually have a law in place that you cannot shoot a Sasquatch.
Oh,
The
I-
fine
I've
is
heard of that,
$10,000 and up to 15 or 10 years imprisonment.
yeah. Endangered species.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing. Go on, and this is for, look up the 1975 or 1976 Washington State Environmental Atlas.
Okay.
Now, back then, this is something that the taxpayers paid money into. Why would they put a creature that supposedly doesn't exist into a official government document?
Right.
In that document is Sasquatch. The Washington Environmental Atlas, 1976 or 1975. They have a section in there about Sasquatch.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That is an official government
Yeah.
document.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, we've seen that in a number of other
Yeah.
areas too. Like in the middle of the COVID relief bill in 2020, there's this section on UFO disclosure. And we're just kind of like,
Why is that there?
yeah, that's,
Yeah.
that's odd.
And that's sometimes that could be the way they do it. While you're looking over here, what's really
Right.
going on is over there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, to wrap up that question, I don't think the government
Yeah.
has any cover up going, and I don't really
Honestly, if
think
they were-
they'll care though. They'll care once
Yeah.
a dead body's brought
Of course.
I-
Yeah.
If there's some sort of naturalized, like long lost species, I don't see why they would care, right? If that's the extent of it, then it's like, and if you think about it, like people think we have an overcrowding problem in the world, but all of research shows that's not the case. Like our culture's still agrarian, which like people still move to city centers, right? There's still vast amounts of the world that are uninhabited and unlived in. And so how many other things are
Right.
out there that could be completely undiscovered? Like, wasn't it like 10 years ago where we discovered the giant squid species? Like,
Yeah. in the
we thought
ocean,
they were
yeah,
like
for
a few
sure.
feet long, and then it's like, oh, actually, like there's these like
They're massive.
25 feet long. And then
Yeah.
you look back at some of these old illustrated accounts of shipwrecks during, you know, last century, and it's like they've got kraken-sized squid taking them down. It's like, well, you know, could there be other things like that out there, including Sasquatch?
Now, I will say another thing. If they're discovered, here's what do you think is going to happen if they do tests and be like, oh, this thing's got more human DNA than animal? You know what it's going to have? Rights.
Right.
Then you're in trouble.
Right.
Dr. Grover Krantz always said the person who shoots the first Sasquatch won't be in trouble. The person who shoots the second one will be
yeah,
breaking a
that's
serious law.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's some good philosophy there, right?
Yeah.
It's very true.
There is, again, a gentleman by the name of Todd Prescott runs the Sasquatch Archives on YouTube. And on that channel, he has about a good chunk worth of this somebody who filmed Grover Krantz talking about what's going to happen if one is discovered.
Yeah.
And it's quite something. Like, he goes into good detail. And he goes through everything. Like, number one, like, long story short, how are you going to get it out of the woods? What are you going to tell your neighbor when you have this
Right.
dead thing in the back of your truck? Like,
That looks like a person.
Yeah,
in a suit or
like-
something.
Half slung over your truck. there,
yeah, well, I would just do it Harry and the Henderson theory, tarp it to feet to the back, front to the thing, and there way you go. So, but that's and that's what I was going to bring. What's going to happen if it turns out that it's got more human than animal?
Right.
Then you're going to think, oh, Jesus, this thing's got rights now.
Yeah.
Then you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Because
That changes
'cause-
everything, yeah.
Exactly. Because
especially if it's an endangered species, right? Then
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. But,
Yeah.
but if it's like, yeah, for sure.
but
Human DNA.
Grover Krantz also said, but if you shoot the last one, so what?
Right.
It's not going to matter whether it existed or not.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you had mentioned, about some of these reports that you get and, emails and stuff and, a lot of older stories, which
Yeah.
we understand, there's stigma with a lot of these things.
Right.
And, but what about yourself? What are some evidence or some encounters or things that you've seen yourself out there in the sticks?
Personally, I haven't seen one. I'd love
Okay.
to see one at a safe range
Yes.
on a good day
On a good day.
with a lot of cameras. And the only thing that I have, since doing this since fall of 1997, the only thing that I have really come across, which I think were two possible track finds.
Yeah.
first one was found July 21st of 29. I'm trying to think of the date. I sent them to Nathan. They're all there.
Okay.
And basically, long story short, my girlfriend and I were coming back from Valemont, and my girlfriend loves water. She likes rivers, she likes whatever. And we had a long drive ahead of us, so we
Yes.
pulled off to the side. And I'm just, every time I get out of a vehicle or I'm in the area, I'm always looking around because who knows?
Hey.
And so the way this was set up, the river's here. The parking lot is up here, and it's kind of a shape like this. And then I'm walking around this way, and I'm coming back up. It's not really a hill. Let's call it an embankment to
Okay.
get back to the parking lot. Now, in that parking lot, it had just rained 3 days previously.
Okay.
There was an old-style bus there with a trailer on it and probably people whitewater rafting or whatever.
Mhm.
I'm coming up this embankment, and I just happen to look to my left, and on the ground, I see what I think. I'm going, huh. I wave my girlfriend over. I said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" She says, "Yeah." "Stay here. Don't move." I go to the bus, and there's mud, and I'm walking around this bus just to make sure I don't see the exact same thing, and I don't. I circle back down. I look to my right. There's like a padded trees and padded grass. Looks like something was sleeping there. I go back, and I'm like, it looks like a Sasquatch track. And it was faint. You'll see in the picture. I believe it's about 3 days old.
Okay.
I know it had rained in that area previously 3 days ago because I was following the weather, what to
Right.
bring,
Yeah.
And it just looked like a track.
Yeah.
And I found these other indentations, and every few feet apart, going right across Highway 16, over a guardrail, up a game trail and a mountain like that. That was the first time, and that was right before you turn off to Highway 5.
Yeah.
Tetouine Cache, BC.
Okay. And so did it look like a massive human
Yeah,
footprint?
to
or-
me, it was bigger. Like, there's a picture that I sent Nate. Like, I showed Nathan all the pictures. I sent it to
We'll have it in the show notes and
Yeah.
overlaid on the final
there.
video,
Yeah,
too.
and so the second one was found just last summer. Me and my teammate Josh, we went to Nordig. I wanted to show him the Bighorn Dam site.
Yeah.
And I can talk about that too. We get to this place called Crescent Falls, and it's a nice, beautiful day. It's August. I'm like, oh, let's walk along this creek here. I'm walking ahead of him, and I believe Josh goes, "Cameron, I think you better come here."
You're like,
We
just what I wanted to hear.
Yeah, and I look down, and there's this huge imprint, and it looks like a Sasquatch track. And I got the measurements and everything.
Yeah.
And it's looked like it was crossing the river, right into the water.
Yeah.
And so same thing. I told Josh, "Stay here, don't move,"
Yeah.
because I wanted to just make sure we don't lose the spot. And then back a few feet, there's another indentation going down the hill. Now, this area where we found them, in part of the woods part, it's very mossy, so it's very hard. Like Peter Byrne told me, it is harder to find tracks in the forest because it's sponge-like.
Right,
It's mossy.
moss, yeah.
He said the best place you're going to find tracks is on gravel roads and forestry roads.
Yeah.
So that's so anyways, going back to what I was talking about, now this thing was huge, bigger than the first track that I
Yeah.
thought. Now, we wanted, I took video of it. I sent Nathan the video. There's pictures, measurement pictures, everything. This thing, I believe, measured 14 and a half inches or 16 and a half inches, 16 inches across where we believe the toes are.
Wow.
Yeah, that's huge.
Yeah. Now we think it's Sasquatch,
Right.
but it could be a double bear step. We don't know, but I document these things just in case.
Right.
Sure, you try and rule out whatever it is, and then whatever's left,
Excuse
it's, yeah.
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 So that is my two personal findings, and they were 3 years apart.
Yeah.
So it's not like I find something all the time.
Right. Well.
But that's what makes it more credible, right?
Yeah.
It's, yeah.
And it was, and so this summer, my team and I plan to walk that whole river
Yeah.
and see what else we can
Cool.
find.
Yeah,
And if that imprint is still there, which I'm hoping it's not, then we'll know either, okay, maybe it was a real track of some
Right.
sort, or it was, it must have been a marking somehow.
Indentation. In the
But
ground.
the thing is, you can see in one of the pictures, I'm trying to make the stride, and I can't make the stride, and this thing's going downhill.
Yeah.
And there's a tree, small sapling kind of thing, sorry, and it's bent.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
It's like it was using that to get
yeah.
into position to get. There's video, like
Yeah.
you'll
To
see the video.
support or-
I have video of it on my YouTube channel if you want to see.
Well,
it.
and if you're talking like a bipedal walk,
Yeah.
and like if you want to talk about like, oh, maybe it was a big person or something. Let's just play devil's advocate
Right.
here, right? You know, Crescent Falls area, really anywhere in Alberta, if you're walking into a creek, it's cold. Like
Yeah.
this is not like nice, warm water or anything like that. It's very cold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the size of it. That's what I'm talking about.
Holy cow! Yeah, is this your photo of it?
Yeah,
Is
that's-
that?
Yeah,
that's
that's massive.
significant.
And then there is, if you scroll through the other parts there, there should be some measurement pictures as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, exactly right. Like that's massive, and
That's fairly convincing too. That doesn't look like a bear's double step or
no, it doesn't. It's got a much narrower heel area.
And you can kind of see a bit of the ridge line of a foot imprint too. And for those of you that are listening over Spotify or one of our other mediums, we'll have these in the show notes or on our YouTube page.
Yeah, and then from the first indentation to where we think the main print was 2.5 meters.
Oh my goodness. Yeah,
So,
that's
and
crazy.
and the stride was that's 6 feet 9 inches a
Yeah.
stride.
That's massive.
And then this is me trying to figure out the stride, and you can see me holding on to that thing, and I could barely do it.
Yeah.
Trying to span the.
Yeah,
span the
nobody
prints.
walks like that.
Yeah, not
Yeah.
at all. Here you go.
So
Hmm.
that's, and I mean, it could be wrong. Like, even though I think it could be a Sasquatch track,
Yeah.
it could be a double but bear. But the thing that really did it for me was this up here near the toe.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed this kind of odd shape in some of Dr. Meldrum's casts.
Oh, okay.
And it's just like this weird shape inside the toe. You'll see it in some plaster casts too.
Okay.
And
So
yeah, I don't know.
are you equipped now to do casts?
Oh, I was then that day. I was just stupid and didn't go back to the truck and cast it. Me and Josh are still kicking ourselves.
That's one of those things going forward. You'll probably
Yeah.
never forget that again.
Yeah, well, the problem is like the picture, like it wasn't really that deep because it is moss-like and it's
Right.
almost on top of a rock.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the plaster would have done
Gotcha.
in looking back. But yeah, I should have tried. We should have tried.
We as soon as we had our encounter in the tent there, which I think we've shared on episodes prior, I bought a casting set, just a little. You break the one bag and shake together to pour, just in case. Mike, do you want to share our encounter when we spent the night and had stuff tossed at our tent?
Yeah. We were, as you mentioned, the Nordag area, which seems to kind of be a hot spot. You have some pretty well-known historical things, like with the Bighorn Dam construction and those things, sightings with that. But yeah, no, we were camping out there, and we had just had a big thunderstorm, tons of hail. Like once the storm was over, there was probably an inch or two of hail. Like it looked like it snowed almost. And it was dead quiet. Like there wasn't many people out there at all. Like there really wasn't anyone right around us. Excuse me. And yeah, all of a sudden we heard some weird noises.
Yeah.
I couldn't even really describe it to you. We weren't like, oh, Sasquatch, right? Like we're just like, well, that's a weird noise. What the heck was that? Didn't think too much of it. And then, yeah, we started getting rocks thrown at us. probably
Yeah.
about
And not
3
tiny,
or 4.
not tiny little things either.
Yeah,
They
they're,
were-
I don't even.
Baseball size.
They weren't. Yeah, they weren't boulders, but they were.
They were decent.
Yeah.
And I remember we were pretty young, but my first instinct, I like cut down a sapling tree and turn it into a spear with my knife because you're young and you just think fight. But
have to defend ourselves.
but yeah, we didn't. I wouldn't even say in the moment we went straight to
I
Sasquatch.
honestly
We
don't-
thought about it after.
I think it was and it wasn't even like on the trip home. It was just
Yeah.
like that was weird until later. We're like,
you
no,
read some other stories and you piece
this has
things
happened
together.
to other people, and it's around this area, like you said, where it's
Yeah.
been regularly cited, and it was strange.
Yeah, and then another. I heard a strange howl or scream. I know people describe it kind of as a howl or scream type sound. You also hear the whooping. That's another one people
Or the
talk about a
cracking
lot.
against a tree, like a
Yeah. So I was again in the Nordegg area around Lake Abraham, and it must have been somewhere in the early morning, like 2, 3, 4 a.m. Sleeping in my hammock, and I start hearing this very distant, but for how far away you knew it was, the echoing and everything, you knew it was something huge making that noise. And it was, it's hard to explain, but it was kind of like, it wasn't a wolf howl. It was way bigger than a coyote, but it was kind of like, a mixture of like a scream and a howl that it's really hard to explain. And that one, in the moment, I'm like, I've been in the mountains a fair amount. I've never heard an animal sound like that. Like, I'm no expert on all the animals of Alberta, but I'm fairly familiar with everything we have here in terms of strange noises. I've heard of the cougar screams that sound like women screaming sometimes. You
or
heard
babies crying
Right.
sometimes. Yeah.
Elk can make some pretty
Strange
gnarly,
noises.
creepy sounding noises, but
Loons, right?
yeah. Bears, sometimes like if a bear is dying, they make some weird noises too. But
Coyotes will trick you too.
yeah, coyotes, and that's the one that I always am like, oh, is that a coyote? But this one, that didn't even cross my mind because I was like, there's no way a coyote would make that loud of a noise that would echo
Have the
through
lung
the valley.
capacity,
Yeah.
or yeah.
It was deeper.
Yeah.
It wasn't super high pitch, but there was a high pitch aspect to it, but with a more deeper sound as well.
And that's what's interesting because typically, like deeper the cry, because wolves can growl, but it's not like this loud,
Right.
pitchy effect. So typically, something that has a deeper cry means that they're upright. They've got a deeper capacity for holding air and exhaling hair, and so that's not hair but air. So it's a good indicator that it could be something
Yeah.
larger.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, those are kind of the only two encounter-ish type things that I've had, but definitely makes you think. I mean, you go out into I was talking to a friend, or I guess an acquaintance. He had just moved to Alberta from Europe, and he's like, the difference between these mountains and the mountains in Europe is the wildness. He's
Right.
like I can walk that way and probably die before I find another person, or like if you're walking some directions, it's just like you're not gonna find anything
Yeah.
before you're falling and
The
hurt or whatever,
ruggedness
right? Like
and-
it's so
yeah.
rugged and so wild still, and so it's not unreasonable to believe that there's things deep in the forest that that we don't really know a whole lot about, and that kind of goes with what you're saying, right? The undiscovered species.
Yeah. I just want to go back to your rock throwing thing. So, in a documentary, I think it's called The Unwanted Sasquatch or something. Thomas Steenberg's in it, and his good friend, and he just passed away a while ago, Bill Miller. They were investigating an incident where this hunter was hunting in a swamp type area, and all of a sudden he gets rocks thrown at him while he's hunting, while he's duck hunting or something. One almost hits him. And Bill Miller asks, when that rock was coming at you, was it going clockwise or counterclockwise? And he says clockwise or counterclockwise. I forget which one. But he said, good answer. Because this thing was spiraling like a football. It takes hand motion to make a thing spiral like a football.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And we had tried looking up theories too. Like one of them was, squirrels tossing things down onto your tent. But this wasn't a drop in.
Yeah.
This was
And it
coming
wasn't
at like
something small.
I've seen
It
squirrels.
wasn't something small either.
I've
This
had
was-
squirrels throwing something at me too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But it's more like something
Yeah,
like
it's
that.
like a
This thing was going. The guy said was going clockwise or like a football spiraling in the air.
and that's what it felt like to me at least. It felt like something because we were on the side of a hill. If you remember that, it felt like something was coming up the hill and hitting the
Yeah.
side of our tent.
No, for sure it wasn't right above us, but
Yeah.
I mean, what things throw at a distance in the wild? Nothing. Animals don't, other than monkeys, nothing else has opposable thumbs, and there's not, many that at least I can think of animals that throw, right? Yeah, squirrels drop, whatever.
Yeah.
But we're
More of a
talking
toss,
a
right?
larger object that's coming from somewhere not straight above you, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's not that's not a wild animal of Canada, at least
No.
that we know of.
That's right. That's right.
Right?
Sasquatch is distinctively Canadian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just really quick. You had mentioned that your girlfriend was with you for this. Does your girlfriend have an interest in Sasquatch, or is it more something she's like?
She just comes. No, she just lets me do her. I think she's interested more like the First Nations aspect of it, the spirituality of it.
Yeah.
Right.
And
yeah.
that's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
if that's as close as I can get to her being into it, then that's fine.
Hey, that's still
Take
pretty
that.
good
Yeah.
than somebody being completely
Yeah.
closed off to it.
She
right?
was with me when I met Thomas Steenberg, and we had lunch together, and she found him to be pretty cool guy.
And
so-
you're probably all giddy and excited.
Oh, I was
She's-
fanboy.
yeah.
Oh my god. I could, and it was on my birthday. We met on
Oh.
my birthday. I went and he took me to the Chapman residence, where the old. I don't know if you ever heard of that story, the Chapmans,
No, I haven't.
Ruby Creek. Okay, well, long story short, there was this happened in 1941. This family was living in this area, and Ruby Creek incident, and these two kids, I forget the lady's name. I don't know if it was. I forget. But anyways, the two kids were playing outside, and the kid runs inside saying, "Mommy, Mommy, there's a cow coming out of the woods." Well, it was no cow. It was a Sasquatch. And she, being, I believe she had some First Nations in her. And she knew exactly what that thing was coming out of the woods.
Yeah.
She grabbed her kids and hid them behind a blanket. The reason for that being was, in her beliefs, the Sasquatch would steal your soul if it looks into your eyes.
Interesting.
So she was protecting her kids.
Yeah.
And anyway, the Sasquatch ended up coming into near the house and destroyed the lean-to of the house.
Wow.
Broke into some barrels where they had dried salmon, freeze-dried salmon, and then the tracks leading across Ruby Creek up over the Canadian railway fence.
Mm-hmm.
One track was on this side, one track was on the other. Stepped right over the fence.
Jeez.
So I went to where that happened, and that was pretty neat.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the other place he took me to was the Jacko incident of I forget what year that was, but that's where apparently the one was captured by the railway people and brought into Yale, British Columbia, and a young one. And but it never made it to Yale. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that,
yeah.
so that's something you may want to look into one day.
For sure.
So no, me. Oh yeah, I was total fanboy around Steve. I couldn't believe it.
And
You
the fact
you should have seen me when I was trying to talk to Peter Byrne.
Yeah.
When I interviewed Peter Byrne, oh man, I was like, huh? Huh?
Yeah.
Because you grow up watching these guys. You
It's
on
like an
TV.
idol, right?
Yeah,
Like a
like he is the last original Sasquatch researcher left.
Yeah.
And I'm just trying to soak in all this information at once.
Yeah.
And, just trying to get everything out of him that I can.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think I'll ever get the chance to meet him, but at least I got a phone interview with him, and I have it recorded for my files. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
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 Not to mention that this other meeting was on your birthday. It was probably the perfect day for you.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I think my mom was a little worried. Oh, what's Cameron hanging out with this? You know, she doesn't, you know, but no, he's fine. He's a great guy. Like he has a great saying: stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts. That's his
It's
motto.
a good investigator.
And the number one rule in Sasquatch research: thou shall not hoax, ever, for any reason.
Yeah.
Well, because as soon as you do it once, nothing else can be trusted.
That's right.
So
Yeah. Just looks like Sandra's got a question here. She's wondering if you can recommend any good kind of camping spots in the Nordic area for this.
Right along the Bighorn Dam. There's
Bighorn
people
Dam.
that camp right there. There's a road when you head towards Ram Falls. There's people camping along that back road all the time.
Okay. That's
Fish Lake
Forestry
or
Trunk Road?
Yeah, I don't know if it's a forestry trunk road. I don't know what the forestry trunk road is.
Yeah, that's the Forestry Trunk Road kind of goes all the way from southern Alberta along through the foothills. It's a gravel road.
Okay.
But a lot of people will backcountry camp off of that
I guess I'll
one,
be
so.
checking that place out. This
Oh,
summer.
yeah.
it's a great area. It's very wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
How far is that away from hereabouts?
It's right, like, I think it's right past Nordegg.
Okay.
And that, like, just right after Nordegg, you just go north or south, and you can go all the way to Jasper, or you can go all the way to southern Alberta.
It's easy to find.
It's
windy.
It's not the Icefield Parkway Road.
No.
Okay.
It's
okay.
gravel. Like
Okay.
it
Okay.
takes you to some of the most remote places you can get in the foothills, really.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah, Sandra, check around that area. Some good backcountry
Bighorn
camping.
Dam.
Yeah. Fish Lake. It's where we had our first encounter, and there's some campgrounds there that aren't backcountry. So check that out. Yeah.
I think that's kind of a perfect place to end it for today. Cameron, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
It's,
Thank you.
we could spend hours talking about this stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I did want to show you this little thing as well.
Sure.
I'm sure your viewers know who David Suzuki is. So I emailed him one time because I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to get his opinion on the Sasquatch. So if Nathan wants to read that or whoever to wrap
Sure.
it.
Why don't I let you read it just because it's your.
I can't even
Handwriting?
read handwriting. No, this is his handwriting. I can't even
Okay.
barely read it. That's why
Yeah,
I wanted. I can read. Just handwriting is a tough one.
Oh, okay. Dear Mr. Young. I can read that part. We know a tiny fraction of biological creatures on the planet. Most are small microorganisms, tiny insects, but the large ones are better known because we use them like... This is classic, like, older person.
older educated person.
Yeah,
like
before
doctor's
they
writing.
stopped doing this type of writing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if there is a creature like a Sasquatch that it could continue to avoid discovery or to continue to avoid serious encounters, just because something like that people would see.
Basically,
I'm afraid I have nothing of interest, and because I don't take this issue seriously.
yeah. I was kind of disappointed.
That
I
is
thought,
disappointing. I was
I was
kinda
like, man, you have a show called The Nature of Things, and you can't, and that's the problem we run into. So,
Yeah.
And before we wrap this up, the one guy that I first talked to, his name was John Bindernagel, and he was a biology guy from BC, and he would just have a heck of a time trying to convince these scientific people to be like, come on, like we could be on the right, could have the discovery of our lifetime right in our backyard, and you guys don't even want to touch it.
Seriously, yeah.
And that is the biggest issue that we're still fighting today.
Yeah.
On my count of my hands, Dr. Grover Krantz, John Bindernagel, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, that's it.
Yeah.
Just those three.
I think there's an arrogance in humanity today that's never existed before, thinking that we know it all, we've encountered it all, but I look at how we've explored more of outer space than we have of our own oceans, right? And how we're continually discovering new things. And there's just this perception that, we've encountered that all there is to encounter, we've documented all there is to document. I just saw on Morbid Curiosities the other day, there's this new species of spider that's been discovered in Australia. Not just, a new spider, but a new species of spider. And it's just like, oh, that was last week. And it's like, how much more do we have left to encounter? And a great illustration I find that's just absolutely mind-blowing is Neil deGrasse Tyson, who I've got some issues with, but he described how if you were to hold the earth in the palm of your hand, it would feel as smooth as a cue ball, as a cue ball off a billiards table, because that's how large the earth is compared to even the mountains and the oceans. Like, even as high as the mountains are and as vast as they are, our earth is so large compared to them that you wouldn't even feel them if you brushed your hand across the surface. And it's just absolutely mind-blowing and humbling to think that we've discovered it all, that we know everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Arrogance is exactly
And
the right
I
word.
guess one last thing for you guys. Have you guys seen the Patterson film?
Yeah.
What are you guys'
Yeah.
thoughts on it? I'm curious.
I don't really think that in that time that would be very hoaxable, to be honest, because the amount of money, the technology, the amount of time and money that would need to go into, like, I don't even think you could create a suit that, like, if you look at it, there's been some effort to make it what do you call it, upscale it into HD and stuff like that, and like, it's just hard for me to imagine that being fake. And so I think it's legit. I think it's legit.
And they've had some analysis on it. I go back and forth, but some of the analysis on it where they've looked at, mascot costumes and other things and looked at where a person's spine and hips would be, just didn't quite match with some sort of costuming effect of the time.
The arms were too long, and like the gait of the walk didn't make sense for humans.
Yeah, if it's a real piece of footage, it's like winning the lottery, right? Because they were set up at just the right moment to. But what are your thoughts on it?
Oh, I think it's real.
Yeah.
100%, not a doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
I interviewed Bob Gimlin on Friday, August 29th, 2009. And I talked with Bob, who was with, and this is my actual handwritten notes. I didn't have a phone back then to record my interviews like I did now. But these are my actual notes that he told me in his words.
And for those who don't know who that is,
Bob Gimlin was the gentleman alongside Patterson that day, October 20th, 1967. He was the reason Roger Patterson was even down there. They, as Thomas Steenberg likes to put it, they went down there on Bob's time, Bob's gas, Bob's truck, Bob's horses, Bob's money, Bob's food.
So just to rewind the tape for a second, not everybody knows what the Patterson footage is. Can you kind of detail the context behind it?
The Patterson-Gimlin footage is probably one of the most important films in human history next to the Zapruder film. It is supposedly showing a female Sasquatch walking across a sandbar in Bluff Creek, California. Long story short, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin were down there for about 3 weeks. Everybody thinks, they were just down there for that one day. But no, they were down there for about 3 weeks, I believe, looking for... Because Roger Patterson was... And this is where the controversy happens. He was down there trying to make a documentary about Sasquatch. And he wanted to hopefully film some tracks. And John Green phoned him. And another gentleman phoned him and said, what you are looking for is down here. That's all that he was said, and hung up the phone. Him and Bob got down there, I forget what day, just looking at calendar, October 20th, 1967, 3 weeks up. And they were down there riding, and one day at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, they rounded a bend, and there's this female Sasquatch standing right there. and the horses go nuts. Roger Patterson gets bucked off his horse, but he's managed to grab his 16 millimeter film camera and starts filming while he's running towards this thing. And of course, at the beginning of the film, it's shaky like crazy and blurry. And then all of a sudden, this thing comes into focus, and there's a female Sasquatch walking right across the sandbar. And it turns, it looks at them with a look of, if you come any closer, you're going to get hurt.
You're going to be in trouble.
Now, and it just keeps on walking at a pace, a steadily pace. And then, unfortunately, it goes behind some trees, and Patterson runs out of film. The reason he runs out of film is because he's been filming scenery for his documentary and tracks or whatever.
Yeah.
And, you know, a lot of people, there's a lot of theories, everything from, there's two of them in the footage. There's a baby in the footage, which is, I don't think that's true. I think there's just one single female creature. And I totally think they got lucky.
Yeah. Well, see, that's the thing. Like, yeah, okay, the one, like you say, the one part where there could be controversy is that they were there to shoot
Yes.
a documentary.
Right.
But if they're going to hoax something, they're not going to run out of footage. Like,
No.
they're going to milk that for everything it's
That's
worth.
right.
Right? Like, they're not just going to get a few seconds.
That's right.
Right? And that's what makes it believable to me, is like, it's not, you know, it's just the way it happens. It looks just like a natural, something's happening, and then you get a few seconds, and then the rest.
And they
is-
would
Yeah.
oh no, I
continue-
ran out of
They
film.
would continue to produce more footage going forward.
Right.
And they never did.
I think
Yeah.
one of the most genuine encounters like that I've seen on YouTube is, and we may have talked about it on the radio before, but it's that spedunker who's got all these like
Oh, where he
hundreds-
does the analysis of the different.
Oh,
videos?
Thinker Thunker.
Yeah,
Thinker
he's got
Thunker. Yeah,
hundreds,
yeah.
hundreds of videos of him going into caves and just exploring.
Oh,
And-
no, that's not Thinker Thunker.
No.
That's somebody different.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But this particular guy goes through hundreds of different caves and goes exploring. And then one video, he hears these freaky sounds coming from deep inside the cave.
I think I've seen
Freaky
this, yeah.
sounds. And then the videos go back to normal. And it's like, it makes it seem very genuine because his interest is
Yeah.
in spelunking.
And I
His
bet you
interest is
that
in
video
cave
got way
exploration.
more views than any of his other ones.
Yeah, and he's not looking to show it off. He's not looking to milk it, but it's kind of like somebody's genuine Sasquatch encounter. It's like they're hiking along, they're going along, and then they see something, and they're like, oh my goodness, this forever changes my perspective. And then they go back to their everyday lives,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But yeah, that's what it reminds me of.
And
the
you have to
Patterson
remember,
film.
Roger Patterson was broke, had fighting cancer. He was into this subject well before October 20th, 1967. He was actually investigating, interviewing eyewitnesses. Yeah, I don't see how that could be a fake. They originally thought, originally when the critics came out, it was John Chambers who did the suit from Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, yeah.
But John Chambers, like, if I had made a suit that good, I wouldn't be releasing it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
That would be in my secret cupboard.
And then, of course, years later, this joker called Bob Hieronymus comes out, and he can't even figure out where the site is. And, it's just...
What a name, Hieronymus.
Yeah. So, no, I think that film is 100% real. And it's a damn shame that Patterson died too early.
Yeah.
He died in 1972 from his cancer. I think I honestly believe if Roger Patterson was healthy and stayed alive, I think he would have been the one that would have made the discovery. I really do.
Yeah. Yeah, he had the dedication.
And here's the interesting thing. He never went back to Bluff Creek after that. I never knew that. He never went back after that.
I wonder why that is.
Who knows? Well, after the film came out and after all the publicity and this and that,
Right.
Gimlin wanted nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
He sold his shares to the film, I think, for $1 to Renee DeHinden.
Wow.
He just
Take this off my hands. Yeah.
and then but I learned actually, and I'm sorry, I know you have to get going. He actually kind of got screwed over big time. Roger Patterson's brother-in-law, I believe, Al Diatley, made all this money off the footage with Roger, touring it. And did you know the very first public showing of the Patterson film was actually in Canada? It was at the University of Vancouver.
Interesting.
And then what they would do is they would travel. They went to because they thought, oh, Sasquatch Canada, they thought they'd start it there, and then they traveled down to like Spokane, Seattle, that kind of thing. The film, I believe Thomas Steenberg told me the film was, and that's kind of the other controversy too. Is okay if this film was apparently shot on a Friday, and Roger Patterson, Al Diatley, John Green, and them. And some of the other original Sasquatch researchers saw it on a Sunday at Al Diatley's place. How did it get developed so quick? Because they would have to have had a private film developer. So that's kind of another little interesting part too. But anyways, it was really cool the one time talking to Bob and stuff like that. And he does a lot of Sasquatch conferences now.
Yeah.
But he's getting up there too.
Yeah.
So I'd like to really meet him. Again, I tried interviewing him. I tried to make an attempt to interview him again, but his new agent wanted...
Gotcha.
And I didn't get anywhere with that.
Yeah.
But at least I have this written.
Gotta grease the hands.
I'm not greasing anybody's hand.
Cool. Well, Cameron, again, thank you so much for coming on to our show and for sharing your interest in research and experience with searching and discovering Sasquatch or trying to discover Sasquatch. We run out of time for today, but we talked about, different people's experiences. We've talked about kind of some of these reoccurring themes, some of these historical instances, and we really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And shout out to my team if they're watching, Star and Josh. And we hope to make the discovery this year. We'd like to move on to our other interests. I hear there's a lake monster in the Okanagan I'd like to get a hold of too. So
Ogopogo.
If you do, call us. We'll be out there with our equipment and gear, and we'll try and break that story with
That'd
you.
be great.
But Cameron, what are some of the ways people can get a hold of you and your team?
Okay, so to get a hold of the team, you can, if you have a sighting or any information about Sasquatch, feel free to reach out to us at arm@gmail.com. That's arm@gmail.com. It stands for Alberta Rocky Mountain. Alberta Rocky Mountain. Geez, did I get that email wrong? Sorry.
From what I have here, it's arm.sasquatch
That's the
at
one.
gmail.com.
Yes,
So
that's
once
the
again, people, that is arm.sasquatch@gmail.com.
And they can also go to our Facebook page as well, Alberta Rocky Mountain Sasquatch, and there's a picture of a team picture on there, and I post a lot of. The page has been a little quiet because obviously we haven't gone out during the winter, but now that the snow looks like it's finally going away, we're really like cage dogs right now. We want to get out. We want to get out there and.
Oh, us too.
Yeah, it's so that's, and then if you want to reach out to me personally with a Sasquatch report, my email is cam.young82@gmail.com. That's cam.young, the numbers 82@gmail.com.
Perfect. And if you have trouble with any of those, feel free to reach out through Midnight Mysteries, and we'll get you in contact with Cameron here.
Yep.
So have you ever had a encounter with Sasquatch? Have you ever had a family member who's encountered Sasquatch or evidence of Sasquatch? We would love to share and tell your story. Thank you for joining us here on Midnight Mysteries. Have a good night.